Hello again and welcome to Money Tips. This is Charles Kelly. Great to see you all again today. I am, just to introduce myself, I'm the author of the book Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, and I've been running this Money Tips podcast for over a year now. It goes out on iTunes, Stitcher, Anchor, and obviously there's the Facebook page and the Money Tips community Facebook group. And I've got a lot of followers on there, so it's great to see you all, and we do welcome your comments. Whether or not you agree with me, that's fine. I still welcome comments, whether they agree with me or not. Now today I've been listening to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak. I can never quite say it. He's the new Chancellor, took over fairly recently, but he's done a very good job. We had Sajid Javid before, who resigned. And Rishi Sunak is a confident guy. He's very competent. He's worked in the Treasury. He's fairly new to being an MP, not that long ago. He comes from a family of business people. I think his family had a pharmacy, and I think he's married to the daughter of a billionaire. So I think he's going to be okay in this coronavirus lockdown situation. And he's answering questions, obviously, that are put to him. But these are following figures today that's come out from the OBR, which is the Office for Budget Responsibility, who said that the UK economy could shrink by 35% in quarter two 2020. 35% in one quarter, which is unbelievable. When we think of a recession, we think of maybe the economy going down by 1 or 2%, maybe. And so 35% would be almost catastrophic. And we could see millions more people on the dole, out of work, just like in America. We've got 17 million people who've applied for unemployment benefit in America, which is getting on for figures that we saw in the recession, the Great Recession of the 1930s. And now these figures, I have to say, do assume that this lockdown continues for 3 months, and then there's a further restriction for 3 months after that. Now, I hope that this doesn't happen, because it will be disastrous for the economy of the UK to continue a lockdown for even another 3 weeks, let alone 3 months. I believe that everybody should, if you're in a position where you're suffering because of this lockdown, perhaps you should get onto your MP, Google who is my MP, and write to your MP and say and email them and say to them, you need to get a plan together to sort this out, so that we know when we're coming out of this lockdown, so that we build confidence in the country again, so that the economy needs confidence to move. And otherwise we're going to see the country which will already be in recession. No doubt most of Europe, including the mighty Germany, will be in recession. The US will be in recession. China, I don't know what's happening in China. They seem to be okay, don't they? They're fine. They're already taking over the manufacturing of all the PPE equipment. We have to rely on them and for generic drugs. So I think they're going to be okay. This seems to have fallen quite nicely into their lap. Not coming up with any conspiracy theories here, but they seem to be okay out of this. But the rest of the world is going to be, more or less the rest of the world is going to be in recession. Maybe China and Russia will be okay. I don't know. We're getting into theories now. But, unless we get out of this pretty quickly, I think we're going to see not only a recession, but we could lead into a depression where the economy shrinks even more and there is even more people out of work. And once you're in a depression, it's very hard to get out of a depression. We haven't seen a depression in our lifetime. We've seen bad recessions. I've lived through many recessions. I've run businesses through recessions. I've been really struggling during recessions in the late 80s, the 90s. The 2008 I wasn't so affected by, because I had a kind of business that could survive that, but it affected everybody. It did affect us in the end. But this one is going to be a lot worse, I think, and we're going to see something like the Great Depression, which started in the late 1920s, 1929. Funny enough, not long after a flu epidemic and the First World War. And this went on into the 30s, really up to the 40s, where people were living in tents and in Central Park, living in shanty towns on Central Park, where people were really starving. They were walking around with holes in their shoes. They just lived in rags. There were hobos sleeping on railway carts. I mean, some parts of the economy still survived. Some parts of the economy did well. But for the vast majority of small businesses, small people, they were just wiped out by this depression. Banks repossessed their properties, their farms, and we don't want to see that again. And of course, that kind of depression eventually led to a lot of disgruntled views in the population, a lot of unhappy people, and this led to the rise of fascism, communism, and eventually to the Second World War, or certainly contributed to the Second World War. I believe that had we not had this long depression and the economic downturn in that 30s period, we may not have had the Second World War at that time. Excuse me. So I think we need a plan to come out of this, because we are seeing already businesses going under. Today they've announced the chain Oasis and Warehouse are in administration. Now, these were good shops. You see them all over the high street, in shopping malls. They were really nice clothes, really good shop, and they've gone into administration. That means that the landlord that they're using all over the country, or the landlords, are not going to get paid. They will lose a tenant, probably won't get paid. And this is despite the government help that's supposed to be out there, which apparently is not getting through. The business interruption loans are not getting through to people. Only just over 1.5% of business interruption loans have got through to people. There are some help through the local authorities for businesses that pay rates. They've had these cash grants, but again, they're slow to come through, and a lot of businesses don't pay rates. They're in a serviced office where they don't actually pay rates themselves. That's paid for by their landlord. They're in a shared office, so that they're not getting this money. Self-employed people, a lot of them are falling through the net because they haven't been self-employed long enough. They haven't got proper accounts, or they've been drawing dividends before, not salary, and they won't. The system doesn't count dividends, which is ridiculous. Employed people who are furloughed are getting this 80% of their salary paid for by the government to sit home and do nothing. But a lot of self-employed people are really suffering. When I say self-employed people, I mean contractors, self-employed contractors, freelance people, people in the gig economy, taxi drivers, all these people that are really going to suffer. And that to say, the Chancellor said today that business would bounce back, the economy would bounce back, and the OBR say, but quickly the economy would bounce back. Yeah, maybe it will bounce back for Tesco's and Amazon. Tesco's have benefited from £500 million worth of grants. And yeah, it might bounce back for them, but it's not going to bounce back for the guy who owns the cafe, the restaurant, the high street, the dry cleaners, because the business that they've lost, is gone. It doesn't bounce back. That business is gone. They've shut their restaurants down for 3 or 4 weeks now. They can't get that back. Even if we go and fill it up for the next year, it's never going to come back. They've lost it. But their costs have been there. They've had to lay off staff. They're losing money that they will never get back. And what's more dangerous is if we run this in for another few weeks and we run it into the summer, we're going to see the like of we haven't seen ever before. The whole of the tourist industry for this summer will be just wiped out. Already they're setting up roadblocks, stopping people going to the coast in the UK just to visit the coast. Why don't they set up roadblocks in airports and ports to check people's health when they come into the country? That's not even been checked. Millions of people are coming through Heathrow every month without any health checks whatsoever. They've been sitting on a plane for hours with 200-300 people sat like this. That's not social distancing, is it? And then when they come into the country, they're waved through. Yes, go through. And by the way, do self-isolate, won't you? Oh yes, I certainly will. Thank you very much, sir. And then what do? They get on the underground. They get on the trains, or they jump in a cab with other people. They get on a bus. And then what? They could be spreading this virus all over the place. So I think this is nonsense that the country has been locked down. Millions of us are under house arrest while people just waltz into the country from China, from God knows where else, possibly carrying viruses with no health checks whatsoever. So that's just crazy. But getting back to the UK tourist industry, already I know people that were coming here, they've cancelled their trip. They were coming here for conferences, they were coming here for exhibitions, for shows, cancelled. The hotels are never going to get that business back. If we go through the summer and all that business is wiped out, that's gone forever. I wonder if the Chancellor understands this. Now, I support the Chancellor. I like the Chancellor. I support the government. I voted for them. I used to be a Conservative councillor. But I think to try and talk things up in this way without a plan to exit this lockdown is just nonsense. Because we've got to have a plan now to get out of this so that business can get back to normal and we can start getting the bookings in for the summer. I mean, London is a massive tourist destination. London gets millions and millions of tourists. I think certainly 10 to 20 million tourists come into London every year, and that's all going to be gone. Now, every tourist that comes in, they're booking flights, and some of them on British Airlines. They're booking taxis, they're using the underground, they're booking hotels, they're spending money in restaurants, in shops, they're going to shows at the theatres. All the theatres are shut down. That business is never coming back. That's gone. The theatres, they call them going dark, that's gone. So we need a plan to get out of this very soon. If the lockdown's not going to end tomorrow, I don't think it will, but what I hear from Dominic Raab is hints that on Thursday, and it's been in some of the newspapers, that he's going to continue the lockdown for another 3 weeks. Again, that to me, that's disastrous. Now, it does seem to me that they're running this thing through to the end of May because these government measures they put through, some of them are not even going to be paid until June. So it seems possibly that this all along was a plan for a 2 to 3 month lockdown. But I really think that, first of all, they could get the building industry back to work, get these half-finished buildings completed or on their way back to completed, get maintenance work done that needs to be done. Builders can't work at the moment. They're not only they're scared of working, but it's not just so much that. It's more that they can't get the materials they need to finish jobs, or big construction sites have just been shut down. Now, those people, some of them are not going to get anything from the government because they may not have the right accounts, they may not have the right figures, they may not get anything from the government. So I think we need a plan. Now, I've just been on LBC radio talking to Nigel Farage on London Broadcasting Company, LBC, and I've said that, we need a plan. Other countries like Italy, Spain and other European countries, I think in Scandinavia, they've started to at least ease these restrictions. Maybe not let everyone run around, but they've eased the restrictions so that people can get back to work. You cannot just stand there and keep saying, stay home and protect the NHS. We need a bit more than this. And what I see every day is these journalists who ask questions to the ministers and to the health people. I don't know where they come from, these guys. I really don't know what planet and how they can call themselves a journalist. I mean, one guy said, what about the PPP? And one said, what about the PPI, which is not protective equipment. PPI was payment protection insurance. And then the health guy said, oh, it's PPP. I don't know where these people come from. Another person said, well, can we see the minister had already said that the health person, Professor Whitty, had already said that the figures are on the government website. And then he said, when are you going to publish them? Well, hold on, they're published on the government website. He's supposed to be a journalist, this guy. And today, none of the journalists said to the minister or to any of the health people, when are we going to come out of this lockdown? What's the plan? Sometimes I think that these questions are just fed to them by their editors and say, well, just ask this question. Don't go too hard on the government. Because if I was asking the question, when are we coming out of this? What's the plan? What is the plan to get this economy back to normal? Because it's not just going to bounce back like that. It could take years to come back. Plus the fact that you'll have all this debt that's been taken on by the government that will take decades to repay. It's billions and billions of pounds of debt. The Bank of England also now are saying that they've effectively opened up an overdraft for the government. This is after they've raised money through the bond market, raised billions through the bond market. Now, that money has to be paid back somehow. So are we either going to see, as one journalist did ask this actually, are we either going to see another period of 10 years of austerity with government spending being cut, or are we going to see increased taxes? Either way, that's not good for the economy. So I think we need a measured approach to get back to get this economy moving again, get the economy moving. The economy pays for everything anyway. Yes, with protection, like for instance wearing masks. A few weeks ago, the scientists were saying, no, we don't need to wear masks, it's ineffective. Now they're saying, oh, well, yesterday they were saying, well, we're still reviewing this. Because other countries have been wearing these masks for months, and they're still reviewing it. So I don't believe this advice they're giving us anymore. They also said that checking people at airports was ineffective. You don't need to do that. Well, other countries are doing it, and I think that they'll probably end up doing this, and we'll probably end up being allowed out with masks on. So the advice, I believe that they've done some things right, but some of the things they've done have not been right, because the government have been relying on advice that has turned out to be, let's say, inaccurate at best. So I think let's get us back to work. Let's start easing these restrictions. I don't mean that you get back to normal, because I don't think anything is going to really ever get back to normal. But you could start getting parts of the economy back to work, so that people, we're not draining the economy, we're not putting the economy into a recession and then eventually a depression, and then hopefully things can get back to normal. We can start building the tourism industry and the hospitality industry, which is a huge employer. It employs millions and millions of people in this country, hospitality. And we need to get those people back to work, and certainly get our bookings back in for the summer, because we're already halfway through April, and people, if you lift this in June or July, then those summer bookings are gone. All the hotels in London will just be wiped out, and a lot of them will go out of business. As today, we've had two major companies, Oasis and Warehouse, going into administration. That means it's not quite bankruptcy, but it's saying, look, we can't pay our bills, we can't pay our rent, we can't pay our staff, our taxes. So they go into administration. Parts of it may be sold off. It may come out at the other end as a smaller business, but the landlord, they're going to be knocked. They won't get paid. The tax man, the VAT, they'll be knocked. Knocked means they're not going to get paid. And a lot of creditors, a lot of smaller creditors that owed money by Oasis and Warehouse will be knocked. They won't get paid. That's further trouble for them. So the big boys, the directors of these companies, will probably survive. They'll have their jobs at the end of it. But a lot of people will not get paid, including many of their staff and especially their creditors. They'll be lucky to get 5p on the pound after this administration. And the companies may come out of it at the other end in a smaller format, but with their debts more or less wiped out. It sounds like a bit of a con, but that's the way things work. They call it Chapter 11 in America. And shareholders also will be wiped out when businesses go into administration. So we've got to avoid this by, as I said, having a definite plan and an end game to get us out of this situation. Yes, people are going to die anyway. People die every day anyway. And we've got to take protective measures. Protective measures, I think, in my opinion, is watching who's coming into the country and protecting it. Protective measures means testing people that go into nursing homes before they go into the nursing home, because nursing home owners have told me that the people that they're receiving are not being tested, and there's no test available for them. That's taking precautions, as they're doing in Germany and in South Korea. They had more testing of people, and then the people that proved positive, they were the ones who were isolated, and then they spent time tracing the people that they'd come into contact with, rather than just having a blanket, let's shut everything down, let's keep everybody in, let's go around hounding people who sit on a park bench, or setting up a roadblock outside Southend Beach. That's probably not going to do it. You need a bit more of a targeted approach rather than the scattergun approach. Anyway, that's my two penneth worth. I'm sorry it's on a somber note, but I'm reporting what's going on today. If you are self-employed and you're not working, one thing you could do at the moment, I guess, is finalise your tax. We're into a new tax year. We've ended the last tax year. Get your tax in order. So at least that's one job you can get out of the way whilst things are quiet. So I wish you all very good luck, and hope that we can all come out of this soon. So I'm urging the government to do something about this. And if you're worried about your situation, if you're not getting these loans through, you're not getting any help, then look up your MP, Google who is my MP, and write your MP and put them under pressure to have a game plan, end of lockdown game plan to get us out of this mess. Thanks very much for listening. This is Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money. Thank you.